Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your speeches. You all did very well. And I'm now confused myself. Okay, so if anybody's got any questions, could you please raise your hand and I'll give you... Yeah, that young man over there.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to ask, sorry John, I didn't get your last name.
John Skipper.
John Skipper. John, I'd like to, you know the EU management leaders, or whatever you want to call them, do you know they don't pay the same tax as we have to do? They've got exemptions on their tax, what they pay on the money they earn. How is it fair? They call national companies for not paying the full taxes, and that's what they do. That's a question to you.
Right, first of all, I'll be quite clear. I don't think the EU is perfect, but I know damn well that if we're not in it, we can't do anything about changing it. And, yeah, we have 73 MEPs from the UK. And I wouldn't mind being on that gravy train myself if I had the opportunity. I can't blame them individually, let's be clear about that. But it's the way the rules work. And those rules need changing. We require our MPs to show their tax returns. We've had all that furore about it recently in the papers. I completely agree with you, sir. I don't like their tax exemptions.
Well, I just make I don't like it at all. The simple fact is they get an exemption on tax, they get the money to send their kids to a private school, private healthcare. It's our money, it should be with us. Salt them. Make them do what we have to do. We don't pay our tax, we go to jail. Same should be for them.
Yeah, but we don't even know what we pay.
Just understand a little bit, John wants to comment on that as well. Can I just comment on that?
Yeah, go on.
I just want to make one point there. In terms of the people at the top of there, the biggest bugbear for me is the fact that they're unelected. Now, if David Cameron keeps like to say, we want to stay in a reformed EU, trying to make out that he has reformed it. I don't believe he's reformed anything. I believe he's tinkered at the edges. Now, if you can't reform it when you're threatening to leave, we're never going to be in a stronger position to change it than we are now. That would be my point.
Can I just answer John's thing?
Can I come back? First of all, who is at the top of the EU? People are either appointed by the government, and let's remember one thing.
Government.
Which government?
All of them.
All the governments, the UK government appoints a commissioner. You, if you bothered voting in 2014, helped elect MEPs, because there was an election. It was by a sort of proportional representation system, and we elected the 73 MEPs. Roughly 10% of the European Parliament comes from the UK. We're the third largest in terms of number of MEPs in the 28 nations. France and Germany are just ahead of us. Italy is on the same level of 73. There are commissioners and there are councils. The Council of Ministers is comprised of 28 ministers from the country. Ministers appointed by the Crown here. Commissioners are appointed. But remember one thing, we have the biggest unelected chamber in the House of Lords. That's just people who are time servers and gone there in many cases.
Well, we can't
So there's a lot to be done. And I don't disagree with you at all, sir, when I say there needs to be reform. But I believe you can get reform far better from being inside the club than trying to say from outside, you must do this differently.
Okay. David.
Well, I've got two questions now from what we just said. How do you think you could encourage reform when you're basically 1/28 of it? And why do you mentioned we have a dual monetary system at the moment, the pound and the euro. If we stay in, how long do you think this organisation is going to work two monetary systems and not force us to adopt the euro?
Okay, Dr. John.
Well, to both the, I'll just say, Jonathan.
Oh,
Shall I answer that one? First of all, there's a complete agreement that the pound will remain there, period, so that's not there. Reform.
Agreement now, sir, yeah, but they may change that.
Well, do you know what's going to happen tomorrow? Do you know what's going to happen when you walk outside that door? No, we don't. The future, we can work on what we're given as assurances, and at the moment, it's quite clear we are keeping the pound.
Yeah, but I don't like giving them the opportunity. That's why I want out.
Well, fair enough, sir, that's your prerogative. But we have done that. Also, as I say, we may be one of 28 nations. We are 10% of the MEPs, and you can only argue for changes inside. I mean, one of the biggest failures, I'm surprised my friends over here, I'll call you friends if
you certainly can.
Why on earth does the European Parliament have all the costs of having 2 HQs, one in Brussels and one in Strasbourg, and I'd be the first to get rid of the Ouija here.
Well, that's the issue with me as well, because I think it'll all be transferred to Berlin, sir. I think Strasbourg and Brussels are just what we have at the moment, and I think if it goes any further, the Germans will take full control and transfer everything to Berlin.
Jason answer this question.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, he wants to.
Yeah, right. Simple fact is we have an agreement, yeah. Right. Ireland had an agreement when they were voting, and they wanted the Lisbon, the European Treaty. What did they do? They sent them back to vote again. Simple. We don't agree with it. Go back. That's what they'll do. It's pure and simple. It's shown that you can't be trusted. When something doesn't go their way, they change it. They move the goalposts. And that's what will happen. Maybe not straight away, maybe not in the next 5 years, but I reckon by 2025, we'll be in the Euro.
Okay, can I just, this gentleman down here, please?
Yes, obviously there are people here who believe one side and people who believe the other side. Now, you gentlemen are Liberal Democrats, and I have no doubt whatsoever you are sincere in your beliefs. Deluded, perhaps, but
Disagreeing well.
the one question, and unfortunately, you're saddled with Cameron being at the front end of your campaign. The one question that I have yet heard to be asked is this. As a responsible Prime Minister, if he actually really believes what he is trying to describe as a result of Brexit, economic collapse, this going down, that going astray, World War III, yes, I know it's an exaggeration, plague of locusts, everything else. If he actually really believes that, when he stands up in front of a television audience and tells everybody this is the drastic consequence of Brexit, why the hell did he give us a referendum in the first place? You wouldn't do it, would you? Would you respond to that?
I'm delighted I can't answer the David Cameron.
I wouldn't mind actually having a crack at that. He doesn't believe it. He stood there only a few months ago and said, well, if I don't get what I want, I will bang my fist. If I don't get what I want, I will stand on the side of the house.
Is he lying?
Yeah.
Of course he's lying. He opens his mouth.
Explain it.
The simple fact is, David Cameron doesn't believe it. He's made a career of being Eurosceptic, and he's literally doing it to save face. He knows he's out at the end of this term of Parliament, and guess what comes after that? As the gentleman said, the Euro gravy train.
He's out on the 24.
Can I let John come in on this, please?
Yes, John, please.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point. I think some of it goes back to certainly one of the strong arguments that you gentlemen have raised in your presentations earlier, and it goes back to national sovereignty. If our powers are being taken away by Brussels, if we do not have a say, then how on earth do we have the power as a sovereign nation to be able to hold an in-out referendum where we as people can decide what the fate of our country is? If, as some of the people on the Leave argument are saying, that we are already tied down to Brussels, surely they would prevent us from holding a referendum. David Cameron, for all his faults, promised in his manifesto that there would be an in-out referendum if there was a Conservative majority, and fair play to him, he's stood by that, because I think with some of the fighting within his own party, he didn't have much choice. Certainly, I don't. I would prefer if there wasn't a referendum, but at the same time, we've got a great exercise in democracy that's taking place. If it motivates people in the same way that the Scottish referendum did 18 months ago, and we've certainly seen it in the take-up of people registering to vote over recent weeks and probably fairly to say over recent hours.
It happened till midnight. You've got until midnight to do it.
What we are seeing, apparently as a member of an undemocratic organisation, is one of the biggest, most enthused exercises in democracy that this country has had for many years.
What you just said, sir, you can answer that in sort of 2 words or a name. It's Nigel Farage. I'm sorry.
What about Nigel Farage? Sorry.
Well, this would not be happening if he was never born.
I'm sorry?
What you're saying, you're wrong about the referendum happening. How is this happening because the EU exists and we would have stopped it and whatever? It's only happening because of one person, Nigel Farage.
No, I can agree with that to an extent, and
well,
yeah, I think
who instigated it?
I think
it wasn't David Cameron.
I think
he had his arm pushed up his back.
Yeah, by people within his own party. But I can understand the point.
Yeah, I just want to make one point. In 1975, when you had the chance to vote last time, to now, just look at how things have changed. And just look as well the fact that we weren't consulted. I know when there was the Lisbon Treaty, it was going to be the European Constitution, and David Cameron said, I will give you a cast iron guarantee you'll have a referendum. They knocked off 5% of it, changed the name of it from the Constitution to a treaty, and they ducked the issue of giving it. My concern is this, and I don't know whether you could give any reassurance from your point of view, is we're probably not going to have another referendum for 40 years. Unless we vote the wrong way, in which case so we might have to. But if, the likelihood is we might not get a referendum for 40 years. Where will the EU be in 40 years' time? If you can see the direction of travel from 75 to 2016, then take 2016 into the future, what will it be like? Because I am concerned that it will be like the European superstate that the people at the top say. One last quote. Schulz, the president of the parliament, you can see it on YouTube and saying it, we are building an empire, and that scares me.